तो सुनते थे कि ये भारत नया भारत है, घर में घुस के मारेगा। ये क्या हो रहा है साहब? ये क्या हो रहा है? हमारे घर में, घर के आंगन में घुसकर हमारे मेहमान को मार रहे हैं।
Viewers, that was Pawan Kheda blaming the Modi government for American attack on an Iranian ship. Yes. Now let me expose the hypocrisy of those who are once again pointing fingers at the Modi government over the tense developments between America, Israel and Iran. These so-called liberal voices, viewers, are up in arms, blaming India for not loudly condemning the bombing of an Iranian ship in international waters. Let me underline, international waters. Viewers, India has absolutely nothing to do with that incident, nothing. But the Congress wants to drag India into it to score points against PM Modi. Congress party has a long history, viewers, of botched up foreign policy blunders driven by either over-enthusiasm or naive idealism. Take Nehru's blind trust and the, Hindi-Chini bhai-bhai pitch that led to the 1962 war with China, where India suffered humiliating defeat. Nehru's emotional decision cost us dearly, ignoring clear warnings and prioritizing feel-good rhetoric over national security. It's all documented in history books. I am no expert on geopolitics, but read and you will know. Viewers, let's not forget Rajiv Gandhi's disastrous move to send Indian forces to Sri Lanka under the guise of peacekeeping. So what started as a noble intention turned into a bloodbath for our soldiers. They were killed, wounded. It even backfired with Rajiv Gandhi's own assassination by LTT terrorists. Viewers, Congress's habit of jumping the gun has repeatedly burned India, and now they want Modi to repeat those mistakes by picking sides in this Middle East mess. The Modi government, viewers, is not falling for that. At least not at the moment, not so far. Instead, India has done the bare minimum required for diplomacy. Our Foreign Secretary, Vikram Misri, signed the condolence register at the Iranian embassy. The official handle of the Ministry of External Affairs put out a tweet. Let me first read out what the post says. Foreign Secretary Sri Vikram Misri visited the embassy of Islamic Republic of Iran and signed the condolence book on behalf of the people and the government of India on the demise of Supreme Leader Ayotallah Seyed Ali Khamenei. This is the post. Now, if I tell you what the actual message on the condolence book was, what he had written, what Mr. Misri had written, you will know what India has done. Let me quote, "Sincerest condolences on behalf of the government and the people of India. We pray for peace for the departed souls," unquote. Viewers, notice how generic, neutral and carefully worded this is. It does not mention Khamenei by name at all. It does not praise him, his leadership or his legacy. What it does instead, it offers sincerest condolences in the plural. See the nuance here. In the plural, condolences for the departed souls, not one soul. This is clearly a general expression of sympathy for the Iranian people who've lost lives in this tragic conflict, viewers, including the many civilians and others caught in the crossfire of this escalating war. This is a broad humanitarian gesture acknowledging collective loss and praying for peace for all those who have passed. This is not a personal tribute to their supreme leader. Viewers, there is no endorsement of his policies, no political statement. It's the most minimal, protocol-driven response possible. A formal, impersonal note that keeps the door open for diplomacy without committing India to any side. That is the intent of this message. This is not mourning. It is standard diplomatic etiquette, a brief, scripted entry in a condolence book to show basic respect for a nation in grief while protecting our own interests. India did not declare national mourning, did not lower the flag, did not issue, flowery public statements, just this one short generic line on behalf of the government and the people. And viewers, let's talk about the superpowers for a moment. Even America, arguably or unarguably the mightiest nation on earth, has had to do business with Pakistan, the very country that sheltered their most wanted enemy, Osama bin Laden, for years. Despite knowing Pakistan harbored the mastermind of 9/11, the US continued aid, trade, military cooperation because geopolitical compulsions demanded it, viewers. Fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan required the logistics of Pakistan. Stabilizing the region meant swallowing a bitter pill or many bitter pills. American actions are dictated not by emotions or moral outrage. They are cold, calculated moves for national interest. And likewise, India is doing exactly what's best for us, navigating complex alliances without getting entangled in foreign wars that don't serve our people. This is wisdom. This is common sense. It is not weakness by any stretch of the imagination. The Congress ecosystem's knee-jerk criticism exposes their own agenda and desperation to undermine a government that puts India first and to push India into this war. Which is why we are saying, why jump the gun and join the war? Let's open this up. R.P. Singh, the national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, Sushil Pandit ji, Nikhil Jain on the panel, Tehseen Poonawala, Faizan Kidwai, national spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, Professor Monojit Mondal, Karan Verma completes this panel. Tehseen, many in the Congress, I don't want to take names because some of those are hurt by, the action of the Congress party that they've not been sent to the Rajya Sabha. But let's not get into it. They are saying that this was India's moral obligation. We should have protected this Iranian ship.
Thank you for having me on the show, Pranesh. I think both sides tend to exaggerate a bit of a point, but let's be clear. While this was in international waters, this was closer to Sri Lanka, about 40 nautical miles of Sri Lanka. So we get that. And Sri Lanka was the first to respond. The Indian Navy's put out a statement about 10 minutes ago that the Indian Navy did try to get into the response. My question is two, and they are very simple, very basic questions. This is our sphere of influence. I totally understand it's international waters. I totally understand it's close to Gay, Sri Lanka. But this is our sphere of influence. If our ally, our friend, the US, is operating submarines close to our area of influence and sinking somebody who was a guest, Navy soldiers who were marching with our brave Navy men less than 2 weeks ago, they were here as our guests. Number two, while this may be a warship, it was here as per the protocols of India without carrying weapons and heading back. Should our ally have informed us or no? This is point number one, and I think this is very important. What kind of an alliance is this, or what kind of a friendship if this is going to be allowed? Number two, and more importantly, why does a great power like India, and I believe India is a great power, I don't believe the BJP is anti-India, but why does a great power like India take more than 24 hours to put out a note? This note that the Indian Navy put out 12 minutes ago could have come out yesterday. Why would it take so long? Those people there on that boat were here as our guests. Now, sure, you can say if your guest has left the house, he's not carrying weapons, somebody wants to kill him, what can we do? But that's not. This is our area of influence. This is not expected from allies. Just as it's not expected that Indian submarines would hurt Indian enemies when they're in the American region of influence. And I'll end here. Let's assume there's a Pakistani ship, an Indian submarine, and the US area of influence. Would we do that? That is the question that we need to answer. Just that much, nothing else.
I'll answer the last part of what you said. Not for me to answer, but let me take that as an Indian. Nobody knows what India would do in a war. Nobody knows. There is, like you have, books or style sheets. I'm sorry, wars are not fought on style sheets. I think Karan also wants to, respond. I see Sushil Pandit ji. But yes, Tehseen.
I completely agree with you. In fact, I give that to you, it's not for. But I just want you to again understand, Somebody's come as a guest, not carrying weapons, following the protocol. Now in our area of influence, you decide to fight a war and not even inform a friend. Is that being fair? I don't care about Iran or Sri Lanka. I'm asking about my friendship with the United States of America. Let me focus on that area. You may say all's fair in war, but you're my friend. The US is my friend. It's my area of influence. And they were my guests going back without weapons on my invitation. Now you're operating in my area of influence. What kind of friendship is this? Would I do this in Pakistan? In the American area of influence with Pakistan? That's the question I'm asking.
Now, Tehseen, there's a, very, for lack of a better word, a crude example that I have in mind, but I don't think it'll be right to say that on TV. People will accuse me of trivializing this because, lives have been lost. But when we meet next time, I'll tell you about it. I don't want to say that on TV because I know it'll not be seen in the right light. So, but I'll tell you. Now, Nikhil, Pawan Kheda, some of the others in the Congress party are saying that this was our responsibility.
Pranesh, I think Mr. Pawan Kheda should stop asking for responsibility of the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister, much like his best friend Donald Trump, changes his foreign policy every single day. One day he has he goes around to Iran and gives to Supreme Leader a rare 7th century manuscript of the Quran. He hails the India-Iran relationship of thousands of years. And the other day, his spokespersons come on television and tell us how Iran has always been against India, how, Khamenei is a dictator and how we should not be taking sides with Iran. It's all right to take sides with Israel. It's all right to take sides with America. It's all right for our Prime Minister to go and campaign for President Donald Trump and name him. It's all right for the Prime Minister to hug Netanyahu like he's his college bestie, but it's somehow not right to condemn the illegal killing of a head of state. Let's remember that Donald Trump waged a war on Iran without any sanction from the US Congress, which is illegal under American law. It is illegal under international law. It is against our interests because 85% of the LPG passes through the Strait of Hormuz that we import. 50% of the oil that we import passes through the Strait of Hormuz. 50% of the goods that we import passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Chinese ships and Russian ships are going through that because they have gone through the basic decency of condemning this illegal act of President Donald Trump. But Prime Minister Modi is dastardly timid when it comes to taking a stand. This is a clear deviation from
Nikhil,
his
I don't
own
know,
previous
you were not present on the panel the day we, had a full-fledged discussion on this. I thought the Congress is more interested in now using, cornering the government on this ship attack. But because you've raised this...
Can I just have a pointed response? My friend Nikhil, he said Mr. Modi changes his stance. Every now and then he changes his stance. Sometimes he's on this side, sometimes he's on the other. I want to read out a quote. The foreign policy must always be flexible, dynamic and adaptable to changing circumstances rather than being rigid or dogma-driven. You know who said this, Nikhil? Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister who you so revere. The first Prime Minister of our country, he said foreign policy should never be rigid and dogma-driven. In fact, Pranesh, he said this and he regretted that he wasn't that flexible and he couldn't see the threat of China coming. That's the context in which he said these words. So if anything, you are paying a compliment to the Prime Minister that he chooses a side which suits India first. Nikhil, that's how it is. Nikhil and his party have had such disasters, Pranesh. Thank God they were not in power. In 2021, all of them said, oh, the Taliban has now come to power. What will happen to India? What happened to Vishwaguru? They had good terms with Ashraf Ghani. Now what will happen? Turns out we have excellent relations with Taliban. They warned us against engaging with Taliban. Suddenly they saw them as these radical Islamists, but India engaged with Taliban and that's why they have clout in the region. 2022, Manish Tiwari and the entire Congress ecosystem, they said pass a resolution against Russia. When it comes to vote at the UNSC, India should vote against Russia's occupation of Ukraine. India abstained from voting and they all said, oh, India is too timid. Today what happened? We bought oil from Russia. Now they are arguing, will you stop buying oil from Russia on Trump's insistence? So you've had such blunders, such disasters, and every time this government has taken a stand, it's actually aged so well. I mean, I can go back and give you many examples. The COVID vaccines, they said, oh, let's accept the foreign vaccines. Let's give them indemnity. None of this has actually fared well, Nikhil. Flexibility is the biggest hallmark. So if you say the Prime Minister is flexible, I think you've testified his track record here.
Nikhil must be thinking not just Nehru's actions, even his quotes are haunting the Congress party. Yeah, Nikhil?
No. If he's talking about if he's calling bending over backwards as flexibility, then I think I can agree with him. How well foreign policy under the Modi government has aged for us. Our Prime Minister went around campaign for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump went around
just answer bending over backwards. Let's qualify that with an example. Who took the Kashmir issue to the United Nations? आप बस नाम बता दीजिए. कौन थे? नरेंद्र मोदी?
Who blocked
Answer my
Pakistan?
question. Who took Kashmir to UN?
Kashmir issue to UN with the support of the OIC, the same Iran, the same Khamenei. And what have we done?
I will not even ask you about Sharm el-Sheikh. Let's just answer the first question. Who took Kashmir to UN? That is bending over backwards and then never rising again.
My friend, all that we need. My friend,
Nikhil,
all that we need
look,
to be a responsible
I only want to tell you better luck on the next debate. इसमें हो गया. Whatever you had in that one printout, that is of no use. कोई बात नहीं, Nikhil. It's okay. It happens. You know, that's life. You learn and you move on. Let me turn to.
He's rigid. He doesn't move on. That's the problem. He needs to learn from Nehru.
Flexible होना पड़ेगा.
Flexible हो जाओ.
Okay. फैजान भाई, good to see you on the show after a long time. पता नहीं आप इतना गैप करके आते हैं, क्या हो गया है?
नहीं सर, आप जब हुक्म देते हैं मैं हाजिर हो जाता हूं. मैं कहां गैप करता हूं?
कोई नाराजगी तो नहीं है ना?
अरे सर, आपसे नाराजगी होकर के कैसे जिएंगे? ऐसा तो हो ही नहीं सकता ना.
तो ये
It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you, Faizan bhai. Now, do you endorse the commentary by the Congress party that it was India's moral obligation to prevent this, to take a stand?
Certainly, Pranesh. First of all, good evening to you and to the fellow panelists. Of course, it was India's moral obligation because this vessel of Iran was here on the invitation of the Indian Navy participating in an event, and it was following the protocol set by India that there'd be no arms. It was totally unarmed. And when just within hours, while it leaves the shores of the guest country, that is India, it gets bombed. This is highly pathetic on part of America, first of all. And it's very unfortunate because it also belittles the reputation of India. It shows that even America has no regard for the integrity of India because it wouldn't have done that. And for a very long time, there was no condemnation from our Honorable Prime Minister, from our government. It's very unfortunate because Pranesh, as we say, Atithi Devo Bhava, Hindustan का culture है ना कि हम अपने अतिथि के लिए अपनी जान भी दे देंगे. यहाँ आप जान तो नहीं दे सकते. कम से कम we required a condemnation because globally Narendra Modi has constantly humiliated India by the way he's functioning. India was a champion, a defender of liberal world order. We are the leaders of non-aligned movement, right from Mahatma Gandhi to Atal Bihari Vajpayee. We constantly, very, very vocally, we were supporting Palestinian cause. But unfortunately, Mr. Narendra Modi, I don't know what kind of pressures he's facing. Maybe his name featuring in Epstein files or to bail out his biggest fund provider, industrialists from American investigating agencies. Narendra Modi has surrendered India's sovereignty and tarnished the reputation of India globally. See, Pranesh, this is so unfortunate what is happening. These people, these cowards, these terrorists, this perverted pedophile called Donald Trump and this terrorist called Netanyahu, they have orchestrated a pogrom against innocent people in Iran. They bombarded a school, a hospital which was named after Mahatma Gandhi. They killed 165 innocent school girls who were studying there. And there's no condemnation about this so far from our government. This is so unfortunate, Pranesh. Every individual, right from Russia to China,
okay,
every individual has condemned this.
I understand the drift of your argument. Now, you said non-aligned का क्या मतलब होता है, sir?
Sir, don't take sides, sir. You don't take sides, sir, but we are taking side. We are taking side of Israel. We are taking side with Donald Trump. This is what we are doing, sir, unfortunately.
Do you know the External Affairs Minister today spoke with the Iranian Foreign Minister? उन्होंने ट्वीट किया है. उनको फोन करके यही बोला होगा that we are not taking your side.
global condemnation के बाद, sir, taking sides, global condemnation के बाद, if our agencies or someone from the government decides to speak, that's not enough. The Prime Minister should have spoken, because he's the one who was very quick in criticizing the counter-attacks from Iran. Couldn't he have criticized America and the terrorist Netanyahu from the word go initially by condemning both the countries if he wanted to do that? But he didn't. This shows that Narendra Modi lacks the spine. That's why he would surrender everything that belongs to India under the pressure of Donald Trump, sir.
Okay.
First of all,
let's get the BJP spokesperson in on this. RP Singh ji, surrender कर दिया आप लोगों ने, नाराज है opposition.
मैं इनको थोड़ी सी भी शर्म हया नहीं है, हिंदी में बोल रहा हूँ इसलिए कोई समझ लगे इनके लोगों को. 1998 में मुलायम सिंह यादव जी ने 2000 करोड़ रुपए देने की बात करी थी पाकिस्तान को, क्योंकि हमने यहाँ पे न्यूक्लियर ब्लास्ट किया था. याद है आपको? मतलब किसकी बात कर रहे हो आप मुसलमान वोट के चलते हुए, आप माफी चाहता हूं कहते हुए, वोट के बैंक के चलते आप किस हद तक गिरोगे? और ये भूल गए आप, इंडिया ने स्पाई सैटेलाइट लॉन्च किया था इजराइल के लिए. किसके लिए? क्योंकि उनको ईरान पे नजर रखनी थी. तब तो एक अक्षर नहीं बोला. हमारे मनमोहन सिंह जी बड़े वाह करने गए थे जॉर्ज बुश के लिए. ही वाज प्रेजिंग जॉर्ज बुश, सेइंग, "ओ, इंडिया लव्स यू सर, इंडियन लव्स यू." आफ्टर Saddam Hussein was killed, after Gaddafi was killed, was displaced, dethroned, and after that, even that, they were singing songs. और प्रनेश सुशील वैसे ज्यादा अच्छा बताएंगे कि कुछ दिनों से एक इकोसिस्टम चल रहा है कि नहीं, ईरान वाज अ फ्रेंड, दे सपोर्टेड अस ड्यूरिंग दैट Kashmir issue when it went to UNHRC. But fact is that is also half truth. The full truth is that had not Mr. Kiran Kaul as ambassador not taken a stand, that if you want Kashmir issue to be taken care, then you have to also take care of the Muslims here. I mean, we'll send the Muslims also packing back. Thereafter, the Iran took this stand
Right.
and took the U-turn. Otherwise, he was initially signatory of the same proposal.
Let's get in Sushil Pandit ji. Yes, sir.
No, I'm really touched by normally very intelligent Tehseen about moral obligation in a war-like situation. A, that ship was not in Indian waters, it was in international waters. 2, Iran had found kosher to attack 7 other nations which had nothing to do with this war, just because US had some embassies there, US had some bases there. Those bases were not used for waging war on Iran, but their civilian population, their civic infrastructure was attacked by Iran. Now, in that case, if US retaliates by targeting a warship in international waters without telling us, and they have no obligation of telling us, in war you don't inform anyone, much less your own public, your own media, as to what you're going to do. You expect people within the warring sides to inform other nations about what they are going to do? I mean, this is ridiculous. They neither informed India. Even Iran did not inform. Iranian ship did not ask for any help from Indian Navy. The nearest navy was Sri Lanka, and they had under Geneva Convention a moral obligation of saving lives, which they did try to. But the point is, India had nothing to do with this. And why should India, disregarding its national interest, suddenly stand up for some moral gibberish which will have no effect on either side? Just to stand up and be counted for no consequence, disregarding your national interest for some flimsy utopian moral obligation. Bullshit. That's not how international politics and diplomacy works. Not at all. And let this be known, and let me put it on record. Khamenei was no friend of India. Whether it was Article 370, whether it was Pulwama, whether it was Balakot, whether it was Pahalgam, even before that, numerous occasions, they backstabbed India, they voted against India in OIC, they voted in a consensus to drag India to UNHRC in 1993, And when Pakistan was made to realize that if there are any human rights violations in Kashmir, it is that of the Hindus who have been driven out mercilessly, violently, that is when Pakistan changed tack and said Kashmir is the unfinished agenda of partition. And RP Singh is right when he says that in response to that, our veteran diplomat T.N. Kaul, who was at that time part of delegation, stood up and said, okay, if Kashmir is the unfinished agenda of partition, which was actually brought about in order to make sure that Hindus and Muslims who cannot live together have separate countries, then this too is an unfinished agenda of partition, that Muslims should be taken by Pakistan on railway racks. Will you do that along with Kashmir? Iran got wiser after hearing this argument and withdrew its consensus support on an OIC resolution.
When will the ecosystem here get wiser, Professor Mondal? Why do we want to push ourselves in a war which is not ours?
No, definitely India should be the last country to take part in war directly. So I believe that Indian Prime Minister has already taken side with the warmongers. It is amply clear, and traditionally that has not been the case. India has always cared to take side with humanity. And I'm surprised even now that when innocent citizens in Iran, they're dying, especially the cool children, not a single word of condemnation. This is amazing. Iran has remained our friend for 2,500 years. We all know that very well. But not a single word of condemnation. And here, yes, rightly so, they were our guests. They were...
No, Professor Mondal, this 2,500 years, civilizational ties, all that. Khamenei did not believe in all this. Just look at the things he said about India. Karan, this keeps coming up. Civilizational ties. औरंगजेब से लेके खमेनाई तक सब जगह सिविलाइजेशन दिख रहा है.
इनको 65 का युद्ध नहीं दिखा. ईरान ओपनली सपोर्टेड पाकिस्तान. 71 का युद्ध नहीं दिखा. Different UN resolutions नहीं दिखे. So this entire thing 2,500. We can go back to Nadir Shah's time, Professor Mondal. The kind of things that the Iranians have done to India, I don't want to go there. But to say that, we have a moral obligation towards them, we don't have one. But Pranesh, I will make one point here, and that is where I differ from Sushil Panditji with respect. You have to understand this, Pranesh. This ship, this IRS Dana, was here on our request. They were our guests. And when America does something like this is an act of bullying by America. Let's be clear about it. This ship wasn't carrying any ammunition. When America does something like this, it is also testing your patience, because it has not shown any sensitivity towards India. These are India's backwaters. I understand these are international waters. I'm not getting into the technicalities of this. A certain terse response. I'm not saying an outright condemnation. I'm not on the Congress ecosystem bandwagon. Neither do I agree with what Faizanji is saying. But a terse response needs to go. Otherwise, it will be considered subservience. And I'm glad today that our Navy is actually helping in the rescue operations. So I think that's a step in that direction, but something needs to go there. Okay, you can't treat our guests like that. Right. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, now Karan Verma has, said what he felt like, and I'll get Sushil Pandit to respond to it, RP Singh ji also, whoever else wants to come in. But Karan, that terse response has to be at the time of our choosing.
True.
It does not have to be, like you respond to WhatsApp messages.
Not at all. And there has to be nothing coming from the Prime Minister, as Faizanji was saying. And when has he ever surrendered? Let's understand, the Prime Minister today, our country, is under tremendous pressure, walking a very tight rope. All I'm saying is that you have to guard your sensitivities. Somebody comes here, our president welcomes them, you do something as outrageous as this, a certain terse response, not an outright public condemnation, but somewhere. You started your show, Pranesh, today in your package where you said minimal diplomatic courtesies. Just as we saw Vikram Misri do those minimum diplomatic courtesies. Similarly, a minimal condemnation or a terse response needed to go there. I'm glad the first step of that is the Navy helping in the rescue operations.
Sushil Panditji.
Yeah.
Pranesh,
coming to you, Tehseen, just coming to you after this, please.
But terse or not so terse message is a separate issue, and I'll join issues with Karan later. Should that message be as terse as Rahul Gandhi delivered to the Chinese ambassador when China came calling in Dolam, which they call Doklam, in a secret restaurant meeting? Or should it have been as terse as the MOU they signed with China when China had been slicing our eastern Ladakh region? Do we have to take lessons in diplomacy and national interest from a party and a government which has messed up our neighborhood? Whether relationship with Nepal, relationship with Bangladesh, relationship with Sri Lanka on account of LTTE, relationship with even Maldives. What we have inherited in terms of our foreign policy and relationship in the neighborhood and elsewhere is a mess. And they should be the last people advising us as to how to retrieve from this mess. 2, in the times of war, an enemy ship, armed or unarmed, coming from a kitty party or a naval exercise is a kosher target, period. There is absolutely no doubt about it, especially when the enemy is targeting civilian areas of countries which are uninvolved. This ship was heading home to be ready and deployed in the combat. Why not strike it preemptorily? And if it is in international waters, it is on nobody's obligation. Yes, under Geneva Convention, even Americans have an obligation to rescue the drowning sailors, even if of an enemy ship. But they had to be in the vicinity for that. Therefore, Indian Navy and Sri Lankan Navy are abiding by the Geneva Convention of rescuing marooned sailors, period. Whether the ship was a target or not, there is no debate, no doubt about it. In war, you have to take out your enemy capability.
Right.
Preemptorily if possible.
Tehseen,
and no country can have an objection to that.
Okay, would you give us a distance or certain number of kilometers where the guest tag disappears or ceases to exist?
Well, there are two particular issues out here. This was the exclusive economic zone of Sri Lanka. It's also a very important maritime route for India. And I completely agree with Karan. Karan and I are on one page. I don't think this is India's war. I think my country has to stay out of it. I think today what Vikram Misri did is what we debated on your show yesterday. I said there should be a courtesy which has happened. I am completely for that. But there was a guest of mine who was at my house. In my sphere of influence, a friend of mine decides to put my guest down and does not even abide by the Geneva Convention of trying to rescue the sailors, as Panditji said, once they were drowning. This is what is expected of the US. And if my nation does not tell its friend, hey, what the F is going on? This is our neighborhood. And the least you could have done is help. I agree with Pranesh. 12 minutes ago, the Indian Navy put out a statement. They're now in a rescue operation. That's what good, moralistic, powerful nations do. But for our friend to do this to us, I'm again asking you a hypothetical question. Let's say there was Operation Sindoor going on. A Pakistani vessel and an Indian submarine.
1 minute. Tehseen, your friend will protect his interest like the Americans are doing. We have to protect ours. Why do we forget that?
Pranesh, with humility. Operation Sindoor is going on. There's a Pakistani vessel after an American joint exercise in American sphere of influence, and our submarine drowns it. Would it be acceptable to the United States? I'm asking you this. I'm asking you because I believe I'm an equal partner of the United States of America. I believe my Prime Minister stood up to the US, and therefore I don't want my Prime Minister to give a statement. I want my nation to make sure that this is unacceptable. It's my maritime route. My neighbor with whom I have excellent
1 minute.
relations.
This maritime route and area of influence is not limited to Sri Lanka. India's area of influence is across the world. So, there should be no deaths, then no wars, no conflict.
This is my area. No, this is my area and my neighbor's economic exclusive zone. They had no right to do it there. When my guest was going, period.
Tehseen, do you know how many Gulf nations have gone after Iran? Their area, their friend.
I think no Muslim country standing by Iran. Azerbaijan, a Shia
There you
Muslim
go.
weapons from
So
Israel.
what does it tell you?
Or Azerbaijan, I am an equal partner. This is my area. You don't enter my area and kill my guest. You do it outside my area of influence.
Outside
they
where?
were going back. You could have done it somewhere else.
Current
Chase them, do it
outside.
somewhere else.
But Pranesh, would that ship have been there if not for the joint exercise with us? No, let's be honest here. Today, Kawal Sibbal and many other foreign secretaries have said, what the US did, I don't want to get drawn into a war and pick sides. I think the government is doing very well on that. But let's be honest here. What the US did was an outrageous act here. Not the bombing of Iran, I'm not calling that outrageous, but a ship which wasn't even armed, it had no ammunition.
No,
it
that's
was
not
our
true.
exercise.
1 minute.
Yeah.
One person has put out that post that it was not armed. I've spoken to several people in the Navy, both retired and serving. They said that whenever India takes part in such exercises, warships are never unarmed. Never. And in any case, Taran, whether it was armed or unarmed, that it would not have, changed the fate.
No, but it wasn't a warship, right? It was a warship, but it wasn't a ship heading towards a war. It was going back from our naval exercise.
Exactly, it was going back. So that's all. That is all that we know. Going back, where it was going,
one statement,
for what?
Pranesh, one statement. Did the US respect our sensitivities here? The answer is no. Let's be honest about it. I'm not saying
the US
pick up
is
the
thinking
cudgels.
of its national interest. We have to protect our national interest.
Fair enough. I agree with you. It's also not in our national interest to be quiet always.
We are not
I'm not
quiet.
saying a hyperbolic response.
Which is why I said, I began by saying that look at the statement. So we are doing all the tick marks.
Exactly. So I'm glad we headed in that direction when we did the naval exercise. We should do something about that. That's all I'm saying.
Interests. Pranesh, 10,000 crore worth of goods destined for Indian shores are stuck in the Strait of Hormuz. We are stuck with our crude oil imports. We are stuck with our LPG imports. We are stuck with our natural gas imports. What is the government of India doing to negotiate with Iran so as to allow Indian ships to pass? And a point is raised that in 1965 and 71 wars, Iran did not support us. Let me remind the people making this point that at that point of time, Iran was governed by a puppet of the United States. The same United States which sent its 7th Fleet when India waged a war in Pakistan in 1971. You raise questions of how Iran is a friend. If you think that Iran is not a friend even when they gave us oil in Indian rupees, how is United States and Israel a friend of India? They are the ones slapping tariffs on us. They just sell goods to us. It is just their business to sell weapons to anybody who's willing to pay a price. And that is our relationship with them. Yet for some reason, we have taken their side instead of a partner who supported India against
Nikhil,
Pakistan.
calm down first of all. 1 minute. No. Calm down. Every time you speak, in this breathless tone, don't laugh. What you do is you make memes out of yourself. Don't do that. 1 minute. Nikhil, please. 1 minute. You are a well-meaning individual. I respect your enthusiasm. 1 minute. You're well-read also, largely. वो दिखना चाहिए ना. आप क्या बोल रहे हैं आप? Khamenei won an election in Iran? Who installed Khamenei?
Khamenei.
क्या था?
However, Khamenei came into power. Let's not get into that. Even Israel is not.
However हो गया अभी. US puppet to however. Taran.
नहीं, एक सेकंड. I really don't understand, Pranesh. मैं निखिल जी से भी सवाल पूछूंगा और ये फैजान जी से भी. When they say that India needs to stand up to US जालिम रहा है, ये रहा है. What do they really want? Do they want a duel with the United States of America? Do they want India to send its troops, to send its navy and fight it out with US? आप चाहते क्या अंत में? Do you want a long drawn war with US and Israel? With 90 lakh people of ours in the Gulf region, you want us to be at loggerheads with all of them? I mean, this is a tightrope diplomacy. There are certain things we are not going to like of every nation. Fair enough. We have to pick our side. What serves our national interest? Who are we buying most weapons from right now after Russia? We are buying from Israel. Israel's biggest defense buyer is India. Who is our biggest export partner? The United States. Can we really mess up a situation with the United States? What about the Gulf countries where we have Indians and where we have interests? So we are of course not going to look them in the eye if that is what he wants. Yeah.
So thank you, Pranesh, for this time. First of all, I'd like to respond to Mr. R.P. Singh, who made some claims about Netaji. So sir, you should remember it was the late Swargya Netaji under whose regime as the defense minister, the modernization of Indian Air Force and Army happened. It was Netaji who made this rule that the martyr's body will be brought back with complete state honor and be handed over to their families. And आप सर जिसकी पार्टी ने कारगिल वॉर हीरोज का कफन चोरी किया था, मुझसे हिंदी में पूछा था ना, शर्म क्यों नहीं आती? मैं आपसे पंजाबी में पूछ रहा हूँ, इस पार्टी को सपोर्ट करते हुए तैनी शर्म नहीं आंदी? और आती है तो जरा सॉरी बोल दीजिए. साथ ही there are a lot of cheerleaders, a lot of supporters for Israel here, lot of cheerleaders for Israel here. Just let me tell you guys that throughout 1990s and 2000s it was Israel who was making and supplying military technology and arms to our enemy China, including Harpy killer drones, which was used for surveillance against India. They developed Pegasus, which was used against Indian citizens, journalists, which created chaos and instability.
You know what,
what
the Supreme Court has said about Pegasus, Faizan bhai? आप उस टेरिटरी में क्यों जा रहे हैं? फिर आप इंटरनेशनल वाटर्स में जा रहे हैं. आप अपने टर्फ पे रहिए. Why are you suddenly moving into dangerous waters? Pegasus.
He didn't answer.
Pegasus.
What should our policy be towards US? Does he want us to look them in the eye and send our troops?
And by the way, Nikhil, Faizan bhai just told us that under Congress, subsequent governments of the Congress, there was no modernization. वो मुलायम सिंह यादव ने किया है. आप लोगों ने कुछ नहीं किया है. It took his vision to do it. ये उन्होंने बोल दिया आपके अलायंस पार्टनर, अब आप देख लीजिए.
हल्के हल्के हटा रहे फैजान जी, हल्के हल्के कांग्रेस को. He's showing them the
फैजान भाई बहुत स्मार्टली करते हैं.
हाँ, he does it every day.
Okay.
Ongoing process. What is this, yaar? What is it?
Okay, we'll have to move on now. We've seen the political blame game. Let me quickly. He's joining us. Abhijit Iyer Mitra with us. Lieutenant General DP Pandey will be with us anytime. Commander Jaitley, there's so much going on about the American attack on this Iranian ship. What is your take, sir?
See, America is determined to finish Iran. When I say finish Iran, the present regime, they want it to be replaced with the most modern regime. They want to bring back the pre-1979 era. This regime had unleashed a reign of terror on the people of Iran itself. So wherever they see any establishment of the current Iranians, they will destroy them. And they did it. This ship, IRIS Dena, was coming from Visakhapatnam after participating in one of the exercises of the Indian Navy, Milan, where US warships were also there, by the way. And here they were tracking the ship, and the moment it was there in those south of Sri Lanka, of course, it was within the exclusive economic zone. And many people say you should not attack anybody else, but then everything is fear and love and war. They just destroyed it. And of course, some sailors, some officers, they have died. Sri Lanka has rescued around 37 people, I think.
No, forget what Sri Lanka has done. People believe that Indian government should have ensured that there was no harm done to the Iranian vessel. Let me bring in General Pandey is now joining us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
All good, sir. Of the commentary that is going on around this attack on Iranian ship, what is your stand?
Look, Pranesh, my stand is very clear, right? We are people of uniform. We are not people of civil this thing who don't know what are the cost of when you leave a secure port, when you are at port, when you leave a territorial water of a country with which you were a guest of, and when you move out to international waters, what are the opportunities and chances will happen, right? When a country has declared a war, there are two countries at war or three countries at war with each other. Frankly, everything is a game when you are available. I will not get into the ethical dilemma and points of everything. Right now, there is a lot of brouhaha happening that why India was not aware of the submarine, why was this ship allowed to be hit, why the President of India had taken a salute of this thing as part of an IFR, is participating in a Milan exercise. It has not happened in our territorial waters. We aren't responsible for the entire Indian Ocean. Yes, we are net security provider. We are net security provider for people who are innocent, who are, maybe there's a piracy issue, there are other challenges, somebody who is available, who requires some rest, a rescue. Yes, we must definitely go on, help out people. But we just can't say, the nearest, we are a sovereign country. Sri Lanka is a sovereign country. Sri Lanka is the closest to respond. At a distance of about 40 kilometers, which is again out of their territorial waters, in their EEZ, an incident has taken place.
Right.
They have very correctly gone and rescued those people. For example, when Iranian ship was hit, let's say the same thing would happen to outside Vizag, about maybe 200 miles off or 300 miles off. And when SOS would have come, our ships would have gone and assisted to take them out. This is normal, ethical, human conduct, human behavior.
Right. Even in this case, I think INS Tarangini was dispatched for rescue effort. But Abhijit, many people believe, including some in the Congress, that India abandoned its guest, betrayed Iran.
Listen, they could have always stayed on if they wanted to. Okay, nobody was forcing them out of port. They chose to leave port for whatever reason and, sail all the way down to Galle, where there was always a risk that they could have been hit. Now, when you know your country is being attacked, what would a smart commander do? You know the Indian Ocean has some very powerful American fleets and American bases. Why would you then insist on sailing there? You could have come back to port because that port invitation would have remained valid. You chose to go out, you took the risk, you paid the price for the risk. Now the laws are very clear. Up to 12 nautical miles are Indian territory. Any attack within Indian territory, even on a foreign ship, is an attack on India. But any attack on a ship that leaves Indian territory, unless it is an Indian flag ship, it is not an attack on India. Full stop. It is very clear. Okay, so there's nothing about where is the responsibility here of the government? What are we meant to do? Because, and listen, this is off the Sri Lankan coast. How is India responsible for what happens off the Sri Lankan coast? Now, see, the Chinese have a base at Hambantota. Next, these people will say that the closest big navy to it was actually the Chinese Navy in Hambantota. So was the Chinese Navy responsible for being net security provider out there? भाई क्या कहां से ढूंढ आते हैं? They're trying to connect, this is like saying Mark Zuckerberg is getting married to his 15th wife today, but it is happening because Abhijit Iyer Mitra used Facebook. What is the connection?
Karan has a point, Abhijit.
Yeah. Abhijit, I agree with you on the fact that they could have been smarter. We can always say they could have been smarter, and it's not India's responsibility. I buy that. I understand these were international waters also. Having said that, don't you think that the US has disrespected our sensitivities? Because all said and done, this was our guest going back from a joint naval exercise. It wasn't carrying any ammunition, as far as I know, the IRS Dana. Sinking this in our backwaters, not in our backwaters, but you understand what I mean here. Don't you think a certain terse response, I'm not saying an outright condemnation from the highest echelons, but a certain terse response needs to go for disrespecting our sensitivities? At least that should go out, otherwise it's an act of subservience in a way. Don't you think at least for the optics, some message needs to go after something like this? Leave aside the technicalities. Yeah.
Yes, I agree generally. I think it's common courtesy that when some guest came to your house for dinner and left and got attacked by some thug on the road, you would put out a condemnation and saying, bahut bura aise nahi hona chahiye tha. Right? I think that is necessary at this point. The question is, we now have a government that's stuck here because the opposition is demanding God knows what exactly. If you put out even a terse this thing, they'll say, sell out this and that. Basically, they want us, in response to what happened, to sail our navy all the way to San Francisco and bombard it a la Pearl Harbor. And then after you do Pearl Harbor on San Francisco, they'll claim, look, Modi destroyed our foreign policy. He destroyed our relationship. Basically, here it's a case of do when you're damned and don't do when you're damned.
Right.
Basically, they know everything and Modi is some buffoon who knows nothing according to them.
General Pandey, this is Indian Ocean, not India's ocean.
While we may claim to be India's ocean, we can do whatever, people can want to claim whatever. When it comes to a time, let's be practical, right? How far? Look, first, let me start by saying this, that the Americans knew that this ship is going to come about because they were there together. And even the Iranians knew that Americans know, right? And everybody has got a bean count. Like today, if you ask the Indian Navy, they will exactly know what ships are of important countries and technically where they are being tracked, they are going ghosted, they are whichever places are. So similarly, both countries knew there is a ship which is here, right? The smartest move would have been for the Iranians, as Abhijit has said very rightly, to possibly stay on or maneuver around. And therefore, there's a gap, which I am told is a gap of about 6 odd days, in which we don't know where exactly this ship was. So maybe it was doing some sort of maneuvering action to survive and get back to home. They must be under orders to get back. Now, if the Americans knew, and if I believe that they were unarmed, they were not carrying ammunition, everything is there, then of course it's an American folly to hit an unarmed ship. Now I look at let me give a perspective from the we in India, we become very, very nice, and I will term it as naive, because our Pradhan Mantri ji and everybody keeps on talking of Vasudeva Kutumbakam and stuff like that. Yes, it is our civilizational ethos. We must do and see what is done to us. This whole gumsham of this thing, where Bharat was and what Bharat is today, and the way we are going, Bharat will be far more restricted and limited to maybe some smaller portion. The Americans will like to write off one more ship before it joins and picks up a weapon. So let's say I look at one way that would a saner navy not have done the same thing, because if this chap goes and joins the band again and then comes confronting, then everybody in the chain of military warfare management will say how silly Americans were there. They knew there's a ship. It is alone. It is not fully armed to the teeth, and it is there wanting to get killed, because having known that you don't know anything, you're moving from one place to another place. Should I wait for him to get fully armed and then come after you? I don't think there will be sane. You look at, please let's ask how many everybody who's asking us to feel sorry for them are actually feeling sorry for Gulf and everybody who are going shopping.
You're absolutely right.
Can I make a...
Yeah.
You've heard the experts, viewers. We've run out of time, unfortunately. But people who know a thing or two about how these things work, they have spoken. That's all the time that we have. The news are coming up on the other side.